I signed my name at exactly 2:47 in the afternoon. The scratch of the fountain pen against the heavy bond paper sounded absurdly loud in the silence of the conference room. Megan Elizabeth Carter. My signature remained neat, precise, betraying not a tremor of the adrenaline flooding my veins. I didn't shake because I wasn't panicked. I didn't shake because I had rehearsed this moment in my head 1,000 times. The conference room at Hartwell and Pierce was sterilized and cold, bathed in the harsh buzzing glare of fluorescent lights that washed the color out of everyone's faces. The air conditioning was cranking too high, a deliberate tactic to make the opposing party uncomfortable to make them want to leave. I felt the chill prickle my skin, but I didn't cross my arms. I didn't rub my elbows. I sat perfectly still, my hands resting on the polished mahogany table, maintaining the absolute posture of submission. My lawyer Diane Chen sat beside me. She didn't offer a comforting hand or a sympathetic pat on the shoulder that was for amateurs for TV dramas. Diane was a shark in a silk blouse. She was busy organizing the signed copies into her briefcase with practiced blank-faced efficiency. But under the table, the toe of her stiletto pressed briefly firmly against the side of my shoe. A signal. Stick to the plan. Do not break character. Across the table, Derek was smiling. It was the smile I had fallen in love with 12 years ago, the one that used to make me feel like the only woman in the room. Now stripped of my affection, I saw it for what it was, a baring of teeth. He leaned back in the leather chair, his tie loosened, radiating the smug satisfaction of a man who believes he has just pulled off the heist of the century. And in the corner, seated separately on a plush velvet armchair like a monarch overseeing an execution, was Patricia Sullivan, my mother-in-law. She wore a severe black Chanel suit and a string of South Sea pearls that cost more than my first car. She hadn't spoken a word since we entered. She didn't need to. Her eyes, sharp and predatory as a hawk's, tracked my every micro-expression. She was here to ensure the prey was truly dead before they started feasting. "Sign here," Derek's lawyer said. He was young, wearing a suit that cost $4,000 and a cologne that smelled like arrogance. He slid another stack of documents toward me. "And here, this section confirms your irrevocable waiver of all intellectual property rights regarding Carter Tech." I looked at the text. Carter Tech, the company I had started in a drafty garage with nothing but a laptop, a terrifying amount of debt, and 17-hour workdays. My blood, my sweat, my second child. I didn't look up. I just gripped the pen. Sign. The house. Gone. Sign. The investment accounts. Gone. Sign. The business I built from nothing. Gone. Derek leaned forward, unable to contain his victory. "Smart choice, Megan," he said, his voice dripping with false benevolence. "For once you're being logical." I paused for a fraction of a second. The rage in my chest flared hot and violent, screaming at me to lunge across the table, to stab the pen into his hand, to scream that I knew everything. I knew about the $3.2 million he had siphoned off. I knew about the shell companies in Delaware. I knew about the laundering, but I swallowed the scream. I forced it down into the pit of my stomach where I kept all the other secrets. "I just want this over," I said softly. My voice sounded thin, defeated, perfect. Diane shifted beside me. Another subtle nudging of my foot. Almost there. "Megan, please," Diane said aloud, playing her part in our scripted theater. "We can still contest the valuation of the main property. You don't have to agree to this." I shook my head slowly, looking down at my hands. No more fighting. I just want out." Derek's smile widened. He exchanged a look with his lawyer, a look that said, "She's broken." He had no idea. He thought he was taking everything from me. He had no idea he was signing his own death warrant. 2 weeks earlier, Derek had walked into our bedroom and dismantled my life with 12 words. "I want a divorce. I want the house, the cars, the business, everything." I was sitting on the bed reading Marcus Aurelius, the Meditations. The irony was biting. The late afternoon sun was spilling golden light across the carpet, catching the frame of our wedding photo on the nightstand. We looked so happy in that picture, so clueless. "Everything?" I asked. My voice remained steady, controlled. The Stoics would have been proud. "The house, the cars, the business." He counted them off on his fingers like a child listing Christmas demands. The investment portfolios, the vacation property in Maine. And Noah. Derek paused. A shadow flickered across his handsome face. Was it guilt? No. It was annoyance, the same look he got when a waiter messed up his order. He stays with you, Derek said. You don't want custody. He is. Derek searched for the right word, his face twisting slightly. He's not what I wanted. Not what I wanted. Our son. Our 10-year-old boy with the brilliant mind and the heart of glass. Noah who saw patterns where others saw chaos. Noah who loved trains and stars and lined up his toys in perfect chromatic order. Noah whose laugh sounded like wind chimes but who screamed if the texture of his food was wrong. Not what Derek wanted. I should have thrown the book at his head. I should have clawed his eyes out. But I stayed paralyzed on the bed because in that moment the last thread of affection I held for my husband snapped. And in the silence that followed, I remembered what I had learned 6 months ago in a dark booth at the back of a coffee shop. Okay, I said. Derek blinked, thrown off script. Okay. I won't fight you. He stared at me, waiting for the catch, waiting for the tears, the screaming, the begging. That was what he was used to. That was what Patricia had taught him to expect from women. I gave him nothing. Good, he said, recovering his composure. I'll have the lawyers draw up the papers. He walked out and closed the door. I sat there in the silence staring at the closed door, and finally allowed myself to smile. A cold, hard smile. 6 months earlier, the meeting place wasn't the trendy cafe near my office. It was a dive diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where people went to not be seen. James Reeves looked terrible. He was 58, but looked 70. His beard was unkempt, his eyes darting toward the door every time the bell chimed. He was my former CFO. The man Derek had fired 3 weeks ago for incompetence. Thank you for meeting me, Mrs. Carter. He didn't touch his coffee. You said it was urgent, James. It is. He slid a plain manila folder across the sticky laminate table. Your husband has been stealing from the company for 5 years. I opened the folder. It was a forensic accounting nightmare. Bank statements, wire transfers, consulting fees paid to companies that didn't exist. How much? I asked. Over $3 million. James leaned in, dropping his voice to a whisper. Closer to 3.2. And Mrs. Carter, he's not just stealing. He's laundering. I stared at the numbers. The columns and rows blurred. This was my company. I had built it while Derek was out playing golf. I had sacrificed my 20s for this. The offshore accounts are in his name only. James continued, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. But the transfers, the structure, it's too sophisticated for Derek. He's not smart enough for this. Then who? Patricia. James said the name like a curse. I found links to accounts she controls in the Caymans. She's using your company to wash money for the family estate. Why are you telling me this? Why not the police? Because they have friends on the force. Because I need you to know first. James looked at me with desperate intensity. The FBI is already sniffing around. A friend of mine in financial crimes gave me a heads up. They are building a RICO case. If they move now, they might miss the main assets. I closed the folder. My hands were cold. What would you do? I asked. If you were me? James looked at me for a long moment. I would wait, he said. I would let him think he's getting away with it. Let him transfer the assets. Let him put his name on everything. And then I would step aside and let the building collapse on top of him. The present. Back in the conference room, the signing was done. The stack of papers sat between us, a monument to my apparent surrender. Well, Derek said, standing up and buttoning his jacket. He looked lighter, unburdened. That went smoother than expected. Yes, Patricia said from her corner. She stood up slowly, smoothing her skirt. She walked over to the table and looked down at me. Her eyes searched my face for any sign of deception, any crack in the facade. You're a sensible woman, Megan, she said. Her voice was like crushed velvet over broken glass. Some women simply aren't built for the pressure of this life. It's better that you admit it now. Built for this life. Meaning her life. The lies, the crimes, The performative perfection. I just want to focus on Noah, I said, keeping my eyes lowered. At least you'll have the boy, she said dismissively. Not my grandson, just the boy. Though I do hope you get him some help. He's becoming quite difficult. I clenched my hands under the table until my nails cut into my palms. Patience. Goodbye, Patricia. Goodbye, Derek. They left the room together, mother and son, victorious. I listened to their footsteps fade down the hallway. I waited until the elevator dinged. Only then did I move. I looked at Diane. Her professional mask dropped, replaced by a look of fierce determination. Did we get it? I asked. Diane opened her briefcase and pulled out the iPad she had been monitoring. The moment you signed the transfer of ownership, she said, tapping the screen, Derek initiated the wire. He's moving the funds from the corporate holding account to his personal offshore trust, just like we predicted. He thinks the money is clean now. He thinks it's his. He just commingled embezzled funds with personal assets in a traceable transaction, Diane said, a razor-sharp smile cutting across her face. He just handed the FBI the smoking gun. I stood up. My legs felt steady. The cold air of the room no longer bothered me. I walked to the window and looked down at the street 14 stories below. I saw Derek and Patricia walking toward their waiting limousine. Derek was laughing at something she said. He looked like a man who owned the world. He had no idea. I picked up my phone. I didn't call my mother. I didn't call a friend. I dialed a number I had memorized but never saved. Agent Torres, a voice answered on the second ring, brusque, efficient. It's Megan Carter, I said. He signed the papers. He moved the money. A pause on the other end. We see it, Mrs. Carter. The wire just hit the intermediary bank. We have him. And the other thing, I asked. The evidence regarding Patricia. We're verifying the older files now, but with Derek's transaction, the dominoes are starting to fall. Good. I hung up. I turned back to Diane. Let's go. I have to pick up my son. I walked out of the conference room, leaving the empty shell of my former life behind on the table. I had lost the house. I had lost the cars. I had lost the company. But I had kept the one thing they forgot to account for. I had kept the truth. And in the end, that was going to cost them everything. 3 days after I signed the papers, I stood in the center of my kitchen packing the last of the boxes. It wasn't my kitchen anymore. It was Derek's kitchen. In 27 days, legally, he would take possession of the granite countertops, the Viking range, and the view of the manicured garden I had planted with my own hands. The morning light filtered through the bay window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, the debris of a life being dismantled. I wrapped a coffee mug in newspaper. It was a chipped ceramic thing Noah had painted in first grade, a lopsided blue blob that was supposed to be a train. I placed it into the cardboard box with the reverence of a bomb disposal technician handling live ordnance. My hands were steady. They had been steady for days, operating on a frequency of cold, detached necessity. The house was quiet. Not the peaceful quiet of a home, but the heavy, suffocating silence of a crime scene after the bodies have been removed. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Derek. I didn't turn around. I kept taping the box. Zip, cut, smooth. The movers called, Derek said from the doorway. His voice was flat, transactional. He was already treating me like a tenant he was evicting. They want to confirm the final walkthrough for Friday. I'll be out by Thursday, I said, picking up a Sharpie to label the box. Kitchen, fragile. Good. He paused. I could feel his eyes on my back, scanning the room to make sure I wasn't taking anything valuable. Mother wants to bring in her interior designer next week. She says the place needs to be modernized. I stopped, just for a heartbeat. Modernized. Meaning erased. Patricia wanted to scrub every trace of me from the walls to paint over the memory of the woman who had actually paid for this house. She has excellent taste. I lied. Derek lingered. He was waiting for a crack. He expected me to cry, to throw a vase, to scream about the injustice of it all. That was the reaction he was prepared for. That was the reaction that would validate his narrative that I was unstable, emotional, weak. I turned and gave him a polite, hollow smile. Is there anything else, Derek? I have a lot to pack. He blinked, unsettled by my composure. "No, just make sure you leave the keys to the garage." "Of course." He left. I listened to the front door close, the lock clicking into place. I stood alone in the silence. I wasn't leaving because I was weak. I was leaving because this house was no longer a home. It was evidence, and I had already collected everything I needed. 6 months earlier. The discovery didn't happen with a dramatic confession or a lipstick stain on a collar. It happened with a spreadsheet. It was 2:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was in my home office reviewing the quarterly vendor payments for Carter Tech. I liked to keep my hands on the pulse of the cash flow, a habit from the garage days when every dollar mattered. I was scrolling through the rows of data when I stopped. Apex Consulting Group, $14,500. Services rendered IT optimization. I frowned. We had an in-house IT department. I didn't remember approving an external audit. I checked the vendor ID. It was new, added 3 months prior. I cross-referenced the address. It was a P.O. box in Delaware. I felt a prickle of unease at the base of my neck. I ran a search for Apex Consulting in our internal email server. 0 results. No contracts. No deliverables. No emails. Just invoices. Approved by the CEO. Approved by Derek. I sat back in my chair, the glow of the monitor stinging my tired eyes. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was a legitimate expense I had forgotten. But the pattern seeker in me, the part of my brain that I had passed down to Noah, wouldn't let it go. I started digging. I pulled the records for the last 2 years. Apex Consulting, Horizon Strategic Partners, Blue Water Solutions. 3 different companies, all Delaware LLCs, all P.O. boxes, all billing us for vague services like strategic oversight or logistical support, all approved by Derek. The total for the current fiscal year was $480,000. My husband wasn't just bad with money. He was siphoning it. I didn't confront him. I didn't storm into the bedroom and demand answers. Instead, I did the hardest thing I have ever done. I closed my laptop, walked into our bedroom, crawled into bed next to the man who was stealing from me, and listened to him breathe. 2 days later, I received an encrypted email from a sender named Watcher1995. I know you're looking at the Delaware accounts. Stop. They monitor the internal servers. If you want the full picture, meet me. Public Library, Downtown Branch. 3rd floor history section. Tuesday, 10 a.m. Leave your phone in your car. I went. James Reeves was pretending to read a biography of Winston Churchill. He looked thinner than I remembered, his suit hanging loosely on his frame. He had been my CFO for 8 years until Derek fired him for insubordination. "You found the consulting fees," James whispered, not looking at me. "Who are they?" I asked, pretending to browse the shelf beside him. "Shells. There are no consultants. It's just Derek moving money out." James slid a flash drive onto the shelf between 2 books. "That drive contains the forensic trace. But it's worse than theft, Megan." "How can it be worse?" "The money isn't staying in Delaware. It's moving to the Caymans, to accounts linked to the Sullivan Family Trust." James turned a page of his book, his hand trembling slightly. "Patricia is orchestrating it. She's using your company, your clean, legitimate revenue, to wash dirty money from the family estate's old debts. It's money laundering, federal crimes, RICO territory." I stared at the spine of a history book, my world tilting on its axis. "If the feds find out, they will seize everything," James said. "The company, the house, your personal accounts. If your name is on it, they will take it. Unless what? Unless you can prove you're a victim, not a partner. You need to separate yourself. You need to let him take the assets. Let him put his name on the dirty money. And you need to prove the original source, the seed of the company, was yours and yours alone." "Dad." The present. I pulled the Honda into the parking lot of the self-storage facility on the edge of town. It was a bleak concrete fortress of forgotten things. My unit was number 404. Error not found. Fitting. Inside, stacked amidst old winter coats and broken lamps, was a plastic bin labeled Taxes 2008-2011. I popped the lid. The smell of old paper drifted up. I dug past the 1040 forms until I found the blue folder at the bottom. Certificate of Incorporation, August 15, 2010. I opened it. There it was, my signature, just mine. Derek didn't exist in my life then. He was just a stranger I wouldn't meet for another 2 years. This document was my lifeline. When the FBI eventually raided Carter Tech, they would freeze everything. But this piece of paper proved the origin. It proved that the company was premarital property founded with clean funds before the criminal enterprise began. It was the key to eventually reclaiming what was mine from the wreckage after the government was done tearing Derek apart. I took the folder. This wasn't going to the new apartment. This was going to Diane. My phone rang as I locked the unit. It was Hannah. I hesitated. Hannah was my oldest friend, but lately talking to her felt like looking into a distorted mirror. "Megan," she sounded breathless, frantic. "I just left the lawyer's office. It's a disaster." "What happened?" I got back into the car, tossing the folder onto the passenger seat. "Richard's team is using the text messages," she sobbed. "The ones where I called him a narcissist, the ones where I threatened to ruin his reputation. The judge called me hostile. They're moving for full custody." I closed my eyes. Hannah had chosen the path of war. She had hired a bulldog lawyer, screamed at her husband in public, and fought for every teaspoon and towel. She wanted the world to know she was angry. "Hannah, you have to stop engaging," I said gently. "Stop sending texts. Stop fighting him on the small stuff." "I can't just let him win, Megan. He cheated on me. He ruined our family." "I know," I said. "But you're bleeding out. You're making yourself look unstable." "I am unstable. I'm furious." She paused, her voice hardening. "You wouldn't understand. You just rolled over. You gave Derek everything he wanted. I can't do that. I have pride." "Pride. I hope it works out, Hannah," I said softly. "I really do." I hung up. Hannah thought she was fighting for her dignity. She didn't realize she was fighting a forest fire with a can of gasoline. I wasn't rolling over. I was digging a fire break. The school pickup line was a chaotic snake of SUVs and minivans. I spotted Noah sitting on his usual bench by the flagpole. He wasn't playing with the other kids. He was organizing pine cones on the pavement, big to small, left to right. He saw my car and stood up. He walked with that distinctive bouncing gait, his backpack heavy on his small shoulders. He climbed into the back seat, buckled the belt. Click, click, click. Always 3. "Hello, Mom." "Hi, buddy. How was school?" "Loud," he said, staring out the window. "Mrs. Gable wore the perfume that smells like sharp lemons again. It makes my teeth hurt." "I'm sorry. We can brush your teeth as soon as we get home." I stumbled on the word. "To the new apartment," Noah corrected. He didn't look upset. He looked factual. "Not home, the transition unit." I smiled weakly. "Sure, the transition unit." We drove in silence for a few minutes. I watched him in the rearview mirror. He was counting the telephone poles as they whipped by his finger, tapping against his knee in a rhythmic cadence. "Mom." "Yeah. Your face is doing the thing." "What thing?" "The calculator face," he said. "Like when you're doing taxes, but your eyes are sad." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. He noticed everything. He couldn't always read emotions correctly, but he cataloged physical changes with the precision of a scientist. "I am calculating," I admitted. "I'm figuring out the best way to get us set up in the new place." "The numbers have to balance," Noah said simply. "If you take something away, you have to put something back, or the equation fails." "Exactly." He went back to counting poles. I turned the corner toward the apartment complex. It was a brick building, older sensible. It wasn't the mansion on the hill, but it had a secure underground garage and a keyed entry. As I pulled in, the weight of what I had done settled onto my chest. I hadn't just divorced Derek. By handing that wire transfer confirmation to the FBI, I had effectively initiated a federal investigation that would send the father of my child to prison for 20 years. I had pulled the pin on a grenade and rolled it under the bed where my husband slept. It wasn't just justice. It was destruction. But then I remembered the spreadsheet. I remembered the consulting fees. I remembered Patricia calling my son the boy, as if he were a defective product she wished she could return. I parked the car. "We're here," I said. Noah looked up at the building. He didn't complain. He just started counting the windows. "24," he said. "That's a good number. Divisible by 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8. "It's a very stable number," I agreed. We got out of the car. I took his hand, something he only allowed for short periods, and we walked toward the lobby. The unraveling had begun. Now I just had to survive the collapse. Part 3. The mask drops. I moved through the dark streets of my old neighborhood like a ghost haunting the living. It was 9:00 p.m. on a Thursday. The suburbs were asleep, bathed in the blue glow of televisions flickering through front windows. I parked my rental car 2 blocks away from the house, Derek's house, and walked the rest of the way, keeping to the shadows of the manicured oaks lining the street. I wasn't there to steal silver or slash tires. I wasn't there because I missed the place. I was there because I had left something behind, deliberately. 3 days ago, before I packed the last box, I had taped a voice-activated digital recorder to the underside of the heavy oak desk in Derek's study. It was a high-end model, slim as a credit card with a battery life of 72 hours. 72 hours were up tonight. As I approached the driveway, I saw the lights were on. Derek's BMW was there, and next to it, gleaming like a polished silver bullet, was Patricia's Mercedes. Perfect. I walked up the driveway. I didn't sneak around the back. I didn't break a window. I still had my key. Legally, until the closing date next week, I was still an owner. I had a right to be here. But I needed a reason that wouldn't raise suspicion. I unlocked the front door and stepped into the foyer. The air smelled different already. The subtle scent of lavender and vanilla that I had cultivated for a decade was gone, replaced by the sharp chemical smell of cleaning products and the overpowering floral heavy-handedness of Patricia's perfume. Chanel No. 5, the scent of money and judgment. Voices drifted from the study down the hall. "It's risky, Mother. The audit trail is still fresh." Derek's voice, anxious, whining. "The audit trail leads to a company she founded." Patricia's voice, crisp, authoritative. "Stop being a coward, Derek. We've come this far." I took a deep breath, adjusted my face into a mask of weary defeat, and walked loudly down the hallway. "Hello!" I called out, injecting a tremor into my voice. The voices in the study cut off instantly, a crash like someone dropping a glass. Derek appeared in the doorway of the study, his face flushed, eyes wide. Patricia stepped out from behind him, smoothing her skirt, composing herself instantly. "Megan," Derek said, breathless. "What are you doing here?" I forgot Noah's medication," I said, holding up my empty hands. "The specialized inhaler. He's having a rough night and I couldn't find it in the boxes." It was a lie, but a bulletproof one. Noah didn't use an inhaler anymore, but Derek didn't know that. He hadn't taken Noah to a doctor's appointment in 3 years. "You should have called," Patricia said, her eyes narrowing. She stepped forward, blocking the view into the study. "We were in the middle of a private discussion." "I have a key," I said, softly, looking at the floor. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just need to check the study. Sometimes I left his meds on the bookshelf." "I'll look," Derek said quickly. He turned to go back in. "No," Patricia snapped. She looked at me, a cruel smile touching her lips. "Let her look. Let her see what she's leaving behind." She moved aside. I walked into the study. It was already different. My books were gone. The photos of Noah were gone. My desk originally was covered in blueprints. Renovation plans. I walked to the bookshelf, pretending to search. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The recorder was 5 feet away, taped under the center drawer of the desk where Derek was now leaning. "It's not here," I muttered, moving toward the desk. "Check the drawers," Patricia said from the doorway. She was enjoying this, watching me scurry around like a servant. I knelt down, pretending to look under the desk for a fallen object. "Megan, honestly," Derek sighed. "Get up." My hand shot out, fingers brushing the rough wood of the desk's underside. I felt the tape. I peeled it back. The recorder dropped into my palm. I shoved it up my sleeve in one fluid motion. "Found it," I said, standing up and grabbing a random bottle of allergy pills I had spotted on the side table. It wasn't an inhaler, but they wouldn't check. I turned to face them. Derek looked relieved. Patricia looked bored. "I'm sorry to bother you," I said, clutching the pill bottle like a talisman. You look tired, dear, Patricia said. Dark circles. Are you sure you're managing the single mother life? It's not for everyone. I'm doing my best. Make sure you lock the door on your way out, she said, turning her back on me. We have work to do. I walked out. I didn't run. I forced myself to walk at a measured pace down the hall out the door to my car. Only when I was 3 blocks away, pulled over in the darkness of a cul-de-sac, did I let my hands shake. I pulled the recorder from my sleeve, put on my headphones, pressed play. I scrubbed through hours of silence, then the sound of a door opening. Footsteps. Timestamp 8:14 p.m. Patricia. Signed everything. It's done. Derek. Diane Chen looked suspicious. You don't think she knows? Patricia. She suspects. Lawyers always suspect. But she has no proof. Megan signed the waiver. That closes the door on discovery. A pause. The sound of ice hitting glass. Patricia. Now listen to me. Do not move the main bulk of the funds yet. The FBI watches large transfers immediately following a settlement, Derek. So we wait, Patricia. We wait 30 days. Once the divorce decree is absolute, Megan is legally a stranger. Then we funnel the remaining $3 million through the Panama shell. We classify it as a loss write-off for Carter Tech, Derek. And if the IRS audits Patricia, then we blame the previous administration. We blame Megan. She founded the company. She signed the tax returns for the first 5 years. If anyone goes to prison for this, Derek, it won't be you. And it certainly won't be me. I stopped the recording. Cold silence filled the car. This wasn't just theft. This was a setup. They weren't just planning to steal my money. They were planning to frame me for the theft if the government ever caught on. We blame Megan. I wasn't just a victim to them. I was the scapegoat. 6 months earlier. That's when it started. Not the financial investigation, but the death of the illusion. It was a Tuesday in June. I was in my office staring at a variance report on shipping costs when my phone rang. Derek Sullivan, mobile. I smiled. I picked up. Hey, you? Hey, baby, a woman's voice said. Breathless, young. I'm wearing that red lace thing you bought me. Are you still at that boring meeting? The world stopped. The air left the room. I looked at the screen. It definitely said, Derek. I think you have the wrong number, I said. My voice was calm, professional, the voice of a CEO handling a vendor dispute, a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Oh, God. Then the line went dead. She had meant to call him. She had gone to his recent calls or favorites and tapped the wrong name, a careless swipe of a thumb. That was all it took to destroy a marriage. I sat there for a long time. The shipping report blurred on the screen. I didn't cry. That was the thing that scared me the most. I waited for the heartbreak, the sobbing, the grief. But all I felt was a cold, clarifying click in my brain, like a lens snapping into focus. He is cheating. And if he is lying about this, what else is he lying about? That night, I didn't confront him. I didn't scream. I waited until he was in the shower and I took his wallet. I didn't find a condom wrapper or a hotel key. I found a receipt for a burner phone and a credit card in a name I didn't recognize. That was the thread. I pulled it, and the entire tapestry of my life began to unravel. The affair was just a symptom. The disease was much, much deeper. By the time he asked for the divorce 6 months later, I knew everything. I knew about the mistress. I knew about the theft. I knew about Patricia. He thought he was discarding me. He didn't realize I had already been gone for months. The present. The morning after I retrieved the recording, I met Derek at a coffee shop downtown. It was 9:00 a.m. on a Thursday. The place was mostly empty, smelling of burnt espresso and rain. He had texted me, "We need to discuss the transition of the email servers. Businesslike, cold." He slid into the booth across from me. He ordered a black coffee without looking at me. He checked his watch. "You look well," he said, the mandatory pleasantry tasting like ash in his mouth. Considering I've lost everything." I took a sip of my tea. "I'm managing." "The movers confirmed they cleared the house yesterday," he said. I trust you didn't take anything outlined in the agreement. Just my clothes. And Noah's things. He nodded, satisfied. Good. I want this to be clean. Clean, I repeated. Like the books. He froze, just for a second. What? Nothing. I smiled. I just wanted to ask you something, Derek. Make it quick. I have a meeting. Say? How is Vanessa? The cup stopped halfway to his mouth. His hand jerked, spilling a drop of hot coffee onto his pristine cuff. His face went white, not pale white. Who? Vanessa, I said, keeping my voice conversational. The blonde, 24, works in PR. You bought her a red lace set last June, using the corporate Amex, which was sloppy, by the way. He set the cup down. The china rattled against the saucer. How? I've known for 6 months, Derek. I leaned forward slightly. I knew before you asked for the divorce. I knew while you were pretending to work late. I knew everything. He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing. He was trying to recalibrate, trying to figure out how this changed the equation. Then why? He whispered. Why did you sign if you knew about the affair? You could have taken me to the cleaners. You could have invalidated the prenup. I could have, I agreed. So why didn't you? I stood up. I picked up my purse. I looked down at him, this small, scared man in an expensive suit. That's for me to know, I said, and for you to worry about. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back, but I could feel his eyes boring into my spine. I could feel the panic rising off him like steam. He was realizing finally that he wasn't the player. He was the piece. I got into my car, but I didn't drive away. I sat there watching the coffee shop window in the rearview mirror. 2 minutes later, Derek ran out. He didn't go to his car. He stood on the sidewalk, phone pressed to his ear, pacing frantically. My phone didn't ring. He wasn't calling me. He was calling Patricia. She knows. She knows about the girl. She knows about the money. I could imagine the conversation. I could imagine Patricia's cold fury, her calculation, her realization that the loose end she thought she had cut was actually a noose tightening around her neck. Good. Fear makes people irrational. Fear makes people desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. I started the engine and pulled away. I picked up Noah from school at 3:30. He was waiting on the bench. Today he wasn't organizing pine cones. He was sitting perfectly still, hands folded in his lap, staring at the sky. He climbed into the car. Click, click, click. You look different, he said immediately. Different how? Sharper, he said, like a pencil that just got ground down. I looked at him in the mirror. Is that a good thing? It's a necessary thing, he said. Soft pencils break, sharp ones write. He looked out the window as we drove toward our new small apartment. Did you talk to Daddy? I did. Did he look scared? I frowned. Why would you ask that? Noah turned to look at me. His eyes were dark and deep and far too old for his face. Because the bad daddy is always scared, he said. That's why he listens to the grandmother. Only scared people do exactly what they are told. I reached back and squeezed his knee. You're right, Noah. He is scared. Are you scared? I thought about the recording in my pocket. I thought about the FBI agents building their case. I thought about Patricia Sullivan and the war that was about to begin. A little bit, I admitted. That's okay, Noah said, turning back to the window. Fear is data. It tells you what to be careful of. I smiled. Ice cream, I asked. Mint chocolate chip, he said. It's the only logical choice. We drove on. Behind us, the storm was gathering. But for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly which way the wind was blowing. Part 4. The Witness. 1 week. It had been 7 days since I signed the papers. 7 days since I handed Derek the keys to the kingdom. 7 days of waiting for the trap to snap shut. The new apartment was starting to smell like us, like oatmeal soap and Noah's crayons rather than industrial carpet cleaner. Noah had mapped the territory 14 steps from the door to his room, 8 to the bathroom, 22 to the kitchen. He had found his patterns. I was still looking for mine. I sat at the small laminate table near the window, nursing a cup of coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. It was 7:15 a.m. Through the blinds, I watched the street below. The black Chevrolet Suburban was still there. It was parked 3 spots down from the entrance, idling. Tinted windows, nondescript plates. It had arrived 2 days ago, shortly after my conversation with Derek at the coffee shop. "Mom," Noah said. He was standing by the door, his backpack straps pulled tight. "The gray car is gone. The big black one is there again." "I see it, baby." "Is it for us?" "It's just a car, Noah." He shook his head, looking at his shoes. "It's been idling for 42 minutes. That's inefficient. Unless they are waiting for something specific." I walked over and smoothed his hair. "We're going to school, just like normal." "Normal," he repeated. "I like normal." We walked out to my car. I buckled him in. As I pulled out of the lot, I checked the rearview mirror. The Suburban pulled out too. My heart gave a single hard thump against my ribs. It wasn't paranoia if they were actually following you. I didn't speed up. I didn't try to lose them with cinematic evasive maneuvers. That's what a guilty person would do. That's what someone with something to hide would do. Instead, I drove exactly the speed limit. I used my turn signals. I drove Noah to school, dropped him off, and then I spent the next 3 hours being the most boring woman in the city. I went to the dry cleaner. I went to the post office to buy stamps. I went to a public park and sat on a bench for 45 minutes reading a paperback novel while the black SUV sat across the street, burning gas. If they were looking for meetings with the FBI, they wouldn't find them. If they were looking for secret rendezvous with forensic accountants, they would be disappointed. I was giving them a show. The boring life of the divorced ex-wife. By noon, I hoped they were dying of boredom. But boredom wasn't Patricia's only weapon. At 1:00 p.m., I stood in the checkout line at the grocery store. My cart was full of essentials: milk, eggs, apples, the specific brand of crackers Noah tolerated. The cashier rang everything up. $142.50. I swiped my debit card. Beep, declined. I frowned. "That's odd. Try it again." She swiped it again. Beep, declined. "It says refer to issuer," the cashier said, looking at the line of people forming behind me. "Do you have another card?" I pulled out my credit card, the one solely in my name, the one I had opened specifically for the separation. Beep, declined. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Not embarrassment, I was past that. This was realization. I don't understand," I stammered for the benefit of the cashier. "I just deposited a check." "I can put the items back?" She sighed, already reaching for the milk. "No. Wait." I pulled a $50 bill from my emergency cash hidden in my purse, a habit James Reeves had insisted I adopt. "I'll take the essentials. The milk, the eggs, the crackers. Leave the rest." I walked out of the store with a light bag and a heavy heart. I got into my car and called the bank immediately. "I'm sorry, Ms. Carter," the representative said, her voice sounding rehearsed. "Your accounts have been frozen due to a flagging from the primary asset holder regarding potential divorce settlement discrepancies." "The primary asset holder?" I repeated. "You mean Derek Sullivan?" "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Sullivan's legal team filed an injunction claiming unauthorized withdrawal of marital assets. Until the audit is complete, all accounts linked to your Social Security number are frozen. Even the accounts I opened after the separation date. It's a blanket freeze, ma'am. Standard procedure in contentious high-asset divorces." I hung up. It wasn't standard procedure. It was a stranglehold. Patricia knew she couldn't get to me physically without raising alarms, so she was cutting off my oxygen. She was trying to starve me out. She wanted me desperate, broke, and begging for a settlement check so I could feed my son. I looked at the black SUV parked across the lot. They were watching. They probably knew exactly what had just happened. I picked up my phone again. I didn't call a lawyer. I called Derek. He answered on the first ring, which meant he was waiting for this. "Hello, Megan." "You froze the accounts," I said. No screaming, no crying, just facts. "My lawyers advised it," Derek said. He sounded tired. "They said there were irregularities, withdrawals that didn't match your spending history." "I bought groceries, Derek. Milk and crackers for your son." Silence on the line. "I didn't know," he said quietly. Mother said it was just the investment accounts. Mother said. I laughed a sharp, bitter sound. Does Mother ever tell you the whole truth, Derek? Or does she just give you the script and tell you where to stand? Don't start. She's cutting me off, I said. Just like she'll cut you off the moment you become inconvenient. You think you're safe because you're her son. Ask your father how safe that made him. Stop it, he snapped. My father died of a heart attack. Is that what she told you? I let the question hang there. Did you ever see the autopsy report, Derek? Or did she handle that too? I'm hanging up. Go ahead, but unfreeze the account for Noah's expenses, or I will go to the judge and explain exactly why the primary asset holder is trying to starve a 10-year-old boy. I ended the call. My hands were shaking now, not from fear, from adrenaline. I had planted the seed. Ask your father. Yeah, I met Diane at 4:00 p.m. Not at her office and not at a coffee shop. We met in the back row of a matinee showing of a children's movie. It was dark loud and the last place anyone would look for a legal strategy meeting. They froze the money, I whispered, watching the cartoon dog chase a cat on the screen. I know, Diane whispered back. I filed an emergency motion to release funds for child support, but it will take 48 hours. I have cash reserves. I can last. Good, because this confirms it. Confirms what? That they are panicking. Diane didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on the screen. Patricia doesn't use financial violence as a first resort. She uses it when she feels control slipping. She knows you know about the affair. She suspects you know about the money. She's trying to break your will before you can act. She's escalating. Yes, and that's exactly what Agent Torres wants. I turned to her. The FBI wants my son to starve. No, they want Derek to crack, and he just might. Diane handed me a small bag of popcorn. Torres says the wire transfer Derek made, the one moving the corporate funds to his personal trust, has been flagged by the intermediary bank in New York. The trap is set. So we wait. We wait. But Megan, be careful. Patricia is realizing that the financial pressure isn't breaking you. Her next move won't be about money. It will be about Noah. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the theater's air conditioning. She wouldn't dare. She would. She views Noah as an asset or a liability, nothing in between. The apartment was dark when we got home. I cooked pasta with butter, Noah's comfort food, using the groceries I had managed to salvage. We ate at the small table. Noah arranged his peas in a perfect circle around the mound of pasta. The car followed us home, he said. I know. Are they bad guys? They are people who work for your grandmother. Noah considered this. He poked a pea. Grandmother smells like cold flowers. And she looks at me like I am a math problem she cannot solve. That's a very accurate description. Why does she want to solve me? She doesn't, I said. She wants to control the numbers. And you and I, we are variables she didn't account for. He ate a forkful of pasta. Variables change the equation. That makes them powerful. Yes, it does. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from an unknown number. Meet me. Tonight. 10 p.m. The old parking garage on 4th. Come alone. I have the rest of the file. I stared at the screen. Who is it? Noah asked. I don't know. But I suspected. It was James Reeves, or whoever he was working with. I couldn't leave Noah alone. Not with the SUV outside. Not with Patricia escalating. I texted back, can't. I have my son. The response came immediately. Bring him. Stay in the car. Just get the package. It's the smoking gun. I looked at Noah. I looked at the dark window. This was dangerous. This was stupid. This was exactly the kind of thing that got people killed in movies. But if James had the smoking gun, the direct link between Patricia and the laundering, or maybe even the proof about Richard Sr., it could end this weeks earlier. It could save us. Noah, I said, how would you like to go on a secret mission? He looked up, interest sparking in his eyes. Like a spy. Exactly like a spy. We have to be very quiet, and we have to stay in the car. Will the black car follow us? We're going to trick the black car. I knew the building's layout better than the surveillance team did. There was a service exit in the basement past the laundry room that led to the alleyway. It was meant for maintenance staff. It opened onto a narrow side street that was invisible from the main entrance where the SUV was parked. I ordered an Uber to the front of the building. I put a timer on my living room lights to switch on and off, simulating movement. While the black SUV watched the Uber driver wait in the lobby for a passenger who would never come, Noah and I slipped out the back. The night air was cold. We walked 2 blocks to a busy avenue and hailed a cab. To 4th Street, I told the driver. The parking garage was a concrete skeleton dimly lit and smelling of urine and gasoline. We pulled up to the 3rd level. It was empty save for a gray sedan parked in the far corner. "Stay down," I whispered to Noah. "Keep playing your game." I stepped out of the cab asking the driver to wait. The window of the gray sedan rolled down. James Reeves looked terrible. Worse than before. His eyes were sunken, his skin gray. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week because he knew what happened when he closed his eyes. "You brought the kid?" he hissed as I approached. "I had no choice. They're watching the apartment." He handed me a thick envelope. "This is it. The emails. The deleted ones. I recovered them from the server backup before they scrubbed it. What do they say? They show Patricia directing the transfers, explicitly. Move the $500K to the shell. Clean the funds. It proves she's the architect, not just a beneficiary." James looked around nervously. "And there's something else." "What?" "A toxicology report. From 1995. My breath hitched. "Richard Sr. It wasn't a heart attack, Megan. It was digoxin toxicity. She poisoned him." James's hand grabbed my wrist. His grip was painfully tight. "She killed him because he was going to go to the SEC. He was going to turn himself in. James, she will do the same to Derek, and to you. You need to give this to the FBI tonight." "I will. Thank you, James." "Don't thank me. Just survive." He rolled up the window and peeled away his tires, screeching on the concrete. I ran back to the cab. "Go," I told the driver. "Just drive." As we pulled out of the garage, I looked into the envelope. The toxicology report was there. A photocopy of a photocopy, faded and grainy, but the numbers were legible. I had the weapon. Now I just needed to aim it. But as I looked out the rear window, my heart stopped. Turning the corner, entering the garage as we were leaving, was the black Suburban. They hadn't been tricked by the Uber. They hadn't stayed at the apartment. They had followed us. And now they knew I had met with James. They knew the leak was real. The game of cat and mouse was over. The hunt had begun. The black Suburban was 3 car lengths behind our taxi. "Driver," I said, leaning forward. My voice was tight, vibrating with adrenaline. "Take the next right. Then an immediate left." "Lady, that's going away from the highway," the driver grumbled, eyeing me in the rearview mirror. "Just do it. I'll double the tip." We swerved onto 33rd Street. The Suburban followed, lumbering through the turn with the heavy aggression of a tank. They weren't hiding anymore. They wanted me to know I was being hunted. "Noah," I said, keeping my voice level. "Put your headphones on. Volume up. Play your game." He did as he was told. Click, click. He retreated into his world of digital blocks and logic, safe from the reality of the high-speed chase unfolding in the back seat of a yellow cab. "Pull into the emergency room entrance at St. Jude's," I ordered. "The hospital? Yes, now." The driver swerved into the ambulance bay of the hospital. It was chaotic lights, flashing paramedics, unloading a stretcher, security guards directing traffic. "Stop here!" I threw a wad of cash at the divider. "Keep the change." I grabbed Noah's hand and dragged him out. We didn't go into the ER. We ducked behind a parked ambulance and sprinted through the pedestrian cut-through that led to the parking garage on the other side. Through the gap in the concrete wall, I watched the black Suburban get stuck behind a double-parked ambulance. The driver honked, trapped in the bottleneck of medical emergencies. By the time they cleared the lane, we were already in a different cab heading in the opposite direction. We didn't go home. We went to Diane's office. Diane Chen was waiting for us. It was 11:30 p.m. The high-rise office was empty, the cleaning crews long gone. The view of the city was a grid of glittering lights, beautiful and indifferent. Noah was asleep on the leather sofa in the reception area, covered by Diane's trench coat. In the conference room, the contents of James's envelope were spread across the table. "This is..." Diane adjusted her glasses, reading the faded photocopy for the third time. She looked pale. "Megan, do you know what this is?" James said it was a toxicology report for Richard Sullivan Sr. "It is." Diane tapped the paper. "But look at the date, November 1995, and look at the levels." I leaned in. I saw chemical names I didn't recognize, numbers that meant nothing to me. "Digoxin," Diane read. "It's a heart medication, but at this concentration, it's poison. It causes cardiac arrest that mimics a natural heart attack. Patricia killed him. It certainly looks that way. And look at who signed the autopsy waiver." Diane pointed to a signature at the bottom of the second page. Patricia Sullivan. She refused an internal exam. She claimed religious reasons, which is laughable considering she hasn't stepped foot in a church in 40 years. "Can we use this?" Diane sat back, rubbing her temples. "In a murder trial? Maybe. But this is a copy from 30 years ago. The original hospital records are likely destroyed or purged. Without a body to exhume, without a chain of custody for this document, a defense attorney would tear it apart as hearsay. So it's useless. No, it's intelligence." Diane looked at me grimly. "It tells us who we are dealing with. We aren't dealing with a white-collar criminal, Megan. We are dealing with a black widow, a woman who kills when she loses control." She picked up the other item in the envelope, a USB drive. "Let's see what else James found." We plugged it in. It wasn't just emails, it was audio. Click. "Derek. I don't like this, Mother. The transfer to the Cayman shell, it's too much at once. The SEC algorithms will flag it." Patricia. "The SEC is underfunded and incompetent. Stop whining, Derek. We need the liquidity. If Megan's little startup audit digs too deep, we need those funds offshore before the freeze order." Derek. "And if she finds out, Patricia, then we handle her, like we handled the others. She's isolated, she's unstable. Who would believe her?" The recording ended. "That," Diane said softly, "is the RICO predicate. That is conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering, and it links Patricia directly to the crime." "Is it enough?" "It's enough for the FBI to get a warrant," Diane said. "But for a conviction, for prison time, we need more. We need to catch them moving the money in real time. Or we need one of them to flip." We slept in the office that night, or rather Noah slept. I sat in a chair by the door watching the hallway, flinching at every shadow. The next morning, the blow didn't come from a hitman. It came from a courier. A process server intercepted us in the lobby as we were leaving to get breakfast. He shoved a thick packet of papers into my chest. "Megan Carter, you've been served." I opened the packet. My hands started to shake. Ex parte, motion for emergency custody. I scanned the legalese. Immediate danger to the child, mother's deteriorating mental state, paranoia, delusions of persecution. "They can't do this," I whispered. "They have no proof." "Keep reading," Diane said, reading over my shoulder. Her voice was ice cold. I turned the page, and then I stopped breathing. Attached to the motion was a psychological evaluation. Signed by Dr. Aris Thorne, patient Megan Carter. Diagnosis Munchausen syndrome, by proxy. Paranoid personality disorder. "I've never met this doctor," I said, my voice rising. "I've never seen this man in my life." "Read the summary," Diane commanded. Subject exhibits classic signs of projecting illness and danger onto the child to garner sympathy and control. Subject has fabricated a conspiracy theory involving her husband and mother-in-law to justify her erratic behavior. Subject has removed the child from his stable home environment and is keeping him in isolation, potentially putting him at risk of psychological trauma. "They're gaslighting me," I realized. "They're taking everything I know, the surveillance, the fraud, the danger, and using it as proof that I'm crazy." "It's brilliant," Diane said, though she looked sick. "If you tell the judge you're being followed by black SUVs, you sound paranoid. If you say your mother-in-law is a murderer based on a 30-year-old piece of paper, you sound delusional. They've built a cage out of the truth." What happens now? It's an ex parte motion, Diane said. That means the judge hears it without us present because of the alleged immediate danger. If the judge signs this, the police come and take Noah. Today. I grabbed Diane's arm. No, Diane. Do something. I'm going to the courthouse. I'm going to file an objection. But Megan, Dr. Thorne is a hired gun. Patricia bought him. This isn't a legal battle anymore. It's a smear campaign. I took Noah to the FBI field office. It was the only place I knew the Sullivans couldn't reach. Agent Torres met us in a gray interrogation room. He looked at the custody papers I slammed onto the table. "This is a civil matter," he said, though his expression was sympathetic. "The FBI doesn't intervene in family court." "They are doing this to stop me from testifying," I yelled. "This is witness intimidation. This is obstruction of justice." "We know," Torres said calmly. "But we can't prove the doctor is lying yet, not without an investigation." "I gave you the recording. I gave you the toxicology report." "The recording is inadmissible in a civil custody hearing because of state privacy laws," Torres said. "And the toxicology report is ancient history. Megan, listen to me." He leaned forward. "Patricia is squeezing you. She wants you to break. She wants you to trade the evidence for your son. If you drop the investigation, she drops the custody suit. That's the play." "Then I'll drop it," I said instantly. "I don't care about the money. I don't care about the company. I want my son." "If you drop it," Agent Kim spoke up from the corner, "she will still take him. She won't leave loose ends. Once you surrender your leverage, she will destroy you completely. You'll be the crazy ex-wife forever. You'll never see Noah without supervision again." I sank into the chair. They were right. There was no going back. "So, what do I do?" "You hold the line," Torres said. "We are moving up the timeline. We've subpoenaed the bank records based on the wire transfer you flagged. We are bringing Derek in for questioning within 48 hours. 48 hours might be too late. They could take Noah today." "Diane is stalling the judge," Torres said. "You need to stay off the grid. If the police can't find you, they can't serve the custody order." "You want me to become a fugitive that proves their point that I'm unstable?" "I want you to be a protected witness," Torres corrected. "We can put you in a safe house, just for 2 days, until we drop the hammer on Derek." I looked at Noah through the one-way glass. He was stacking paper cups into a pyramid. Calm. Orderly. "A safe house," I repeated. "It's the only way to keep the boy with you until we arrest them." The safe house was a Motel 6 in Jersey City. It wasn't glamorous. It smelled of stale cigarettes and lemon cleaner. But it had a heavy deadbolt and 2 FBI agents in the room next door. I sat on the bed watching Noah arrange his toiletries on the bathroom sink. Toothbrush, toothpaste, floss, left to right. "Mom? Yeah, baby. We are hiding again." "We are waiting," I corrected. "Like in a chess game. Sometimes you have to pause before the checkmate. Is the bad grandmother winning?" I walked over and sat on the closed toilet lid so I could look him in the eye. "She thinks she is. She's using a very mean trick. She's telling people lies about my brain. That you're sick." "Yes." Noah frowned. He reached out and touched my forehead. "You don't feel warm, and your patterns are logical. You are reacting to stimuli. That is not sick. That is survival." I choked back a sob. "Thank you, Noah." "Dr. Thorne is a variable," Noah said suddenly. "Who?" "The name on the paper you were reading, Dr. Thorne." Noah tapped his temple. "I remember that name. From Daddy's phone." I froze. "When did you see Daddy's phone?" 2 weeks ago, before we moved. Daddy left it on the counter. A message came up. Thorne wants another 10K. I remember because 10K is 10,000, which is a round number. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Noah, are you sure?" "I have an eidetic memory for numbers, Mom. You know that." Yes, I do." I pulled out my phone. I texted Torres immediately. "Check Derek's bank records for payments to heiress Thorne." Noah saw a text notification. 2 weeks ago. $10,000. If we could prove Derek paid the doctor who diagnosed me, the custody case wouldn't just fall apart. It would become a felony. 3 minutes later, Torres replied, On it. I looked at my son. My autistic, observant, brilliant son. They thought he was a pawn. They thought he was not what they wanted. He was the one who was going to bury them. Noah, I said, you just checkmated them. Good, he said, turning back to his toothbrush. I want to go home. Soon, baby. Soon. Outside, the sun was setting over the industrial skyline. We had 36 hours left. The Sullivans had launched their nukes, the fabricated medical records, the custody order. But they had forgotten one thing. Lies leave paper trails. And my son read the world like a spreadsheet. The morning sun hit the dirty window of the Motel 6 at 6:45 a.m., casting long, dusty shadows across the synthetic orange bedspread. We had been in the safe house for 14 hours. 14 hours of watching cartoons on a television bolted to the dresser. 14 hours of breathing air that smelled of stale cigarettes masked by lemon industrial cleaner. 14 hours of waiting for Agent Torres to call and tell me that the nightmare was over, that they had arrested Derek, that the wire transfer had been enough. I hadn't slept. I sat in the cheap armchair by the door, watching the deadbolt flinching every time a car door slammed in the parking lot outside. Noah was sitting cross-legged on the floor eating dry Cheerios out of a paper cup. He was counting them as he chewed a rhythmic grounding ritual. 1, 2, 3, swallow. 1, 2, 3, swallow. Mom, he said, not looking up. The air conditioner is humming in B-flat. It's very distracting. Try to ignore it, baby. I can't ignore it. It's a pattern. B-flat, then a rattle, then silence. Repeat every 42 seconds. I rubbed my eyes, gritty with exhaustion. We won't be here much longer, just until Agent Torres calls. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I grabbed it so fast I nearly knocked over the lamp. The screen lit up with Diane's name. I exhaled a breath I felt I'd been holding since yesterday. Diane, I said, pressing the phone to my ear. Did Torres get the warrant? Is it done? The silence on the other end was heavy. It wasn't the silence of a bad connection or a pause for breath. It was the thick, suffocating silence of disaster. Megan, Diane said. Her voice was unrecognizable, cracked hollow, stripped of its usual ironclad composure. There's been a development. What kind of development? Did they contest the custody order? No, it's James. My stomach dropped through the floor, a physical sensation of vertigo that made me grab the edge of the dresser. James Reeves. He's dead, Megan. The world tilted. The hum of the air conditioner roared in my ears like a jet engine. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my hand gripping the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. How? I whispered. I just saw him, 2 nights ago. He was fine. His neighbor called 911 an hour ago, Diane said, her voice shaking. They found him in his garage. The car engine was running. The garage door was closed. They found him in the driver's seat. No, I said, no, that's impossible. They're calling it a suicide, Megan. Carbon monoxide poisoning. That is a lie. I stood up, pacing the small space between the bed and the wall, the cord of the phone charger snapping taut. James was paranoid, Diane. He was terrified of car bombs. He parked on the street, never in the garage. He told me that specifically. Never box yourself in. He wouldn't sit in a closed garage with the engine running. I know, Diane said. We know, but the local police aren't looking for a homicide. It looks like a clean suicide. It's Patricia, I hissed. She found out about the leak. She found out he gave me the files. It gets worse, Diane cut in, and the despair in her voice stopped me cold. There was a note, a typed suicide note found on his laptop. A note. It confesses to embezzlement, Megan. The note says he made up the allegations against Derek and Patricia to cover his own crimes. It says he doctored the evidence he gave you because he was bitter about being fired. It says he couldn't live with the guilt anymore. I felt the blood drain from my face. They planted it, I said. They killed him and they planted a confession to discredit him. And it worked, Diane admitted, her voice breaking. With James dead and that note on record, the entire RICO case is dead on arrival. Any evidence he provided, the emails, the bank records, the recordings, it's all fruit of the poisonous tree now. The defense attorneys will argue he forged it all. Without a living witness to authenticate the data, it's inadmissible. So, it's over. Torres is furious. He's sending a forensic team, but jurisdiction is messy. By the time the FBI gets access to the body, the local cops who might be on Patricia's payroll for all we know will have contaminated the scene. The DA is already pulling back. They won't sign the warrant for Derek's arrest based on tainted evidence. I hung up. I didn't say goodbye. I just dropped the phone onto the bed. I sank onto the floor, pulling my knees to my chest. James was dead. The man who had met me in libraries and parking garages. The man who had looked over his shoulder for 2 years. The man who had tried to save me when I was too blind to save myself. He was right. He had been right about everything. Patricia wasn't just a thief. She wasn't just a manipulator. She was a killer. A cold-blooded executioner who cleaned up loose ends. And now, with the case gone, with the evidence discredited, I was the only loose end left. I looked at Noah. He had stopped eating. He was watching me with wide, unblinking eyes. He didn't ask what was wrong. He knew. He could feel the change in the air pressure, the shift from strategy to survival. "Mom," he whispered. "You're shaking." "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." "Is the plan broken?" "Yes," I choked out. "The plan is broken. The bad guys broke it. We were trapped in a Motel 6. My accounts were frozen. My witness was murdered. And Patricia Sullivan was out there free, victorious, and coming for my son." 10 minutes passed. Or maybe an hour. Time had lost its meaning. I was trying to formulate a new plan run to Canada Drive West until the money ran out when Noah walked over to me. He held out his iPad. "Mom, you need to look at this." "Not now, Noah. Please." "It's the failsafe," he said. I looked up. "What?" "Mr. James told me. In the bathroom at the library when you were getting coffee. He showed me his watch. He said, 'Noah, this is a dead man's switch. If I stop typing the code, the birds fly.'" The birds fly? "It was a metaphor," Noah said seriously. "He meant the data sends itself." My laptop sitting on the cheap desk let out a ping, a singular sharp notification sound that I had never heard before. I scrambled up from the floor. I rushed to the desk. The screen was glowing. An email had arrived. Not to my Gmail, but to the secure encrypted Proton Mail account James had forced me to set up months ago. Sender Watcher 1995, automated subject. "If you are reading this." My hand trembled so violently I could barely click the mouse. "Megan. If this email has been triggered, it means I failed to enter my daily check-in code for 24 hours, which means I am either in custody or I am dead. I suspect the latter. Patricia doesn't like loose ends, and I've been a loose end for 30 years. They will try to make it look like an accident or a suicide. Do not believe it. They will try to discredit the evidence I gave you. Do not let them. I knew this day might come. I knew they would try to paint me as a liar. So I held one thing back. A redundancy. Insurance. The attached file contains the complete unredacted history of the Sullivan Family Trust. But more importantly, it contains the folder labeled 1995. I wasn't just the CFO, Megan. Before that, in 1995, I was a junior billing clerk for the hospital system where Richard Sullivan Sr. died. I processed the billing disputes. I saw what they tried to bury. It wasn't a heart attack. It was murder. Use this. Finish it. Don't let me die for nothing. J. Tears blurred my vision. James knew. He had known they would kill him, and he had used his own death as the final weapon against them. I wiped my eyes and clicked the attachment. It was a massive zip file. I opened the folder labeled 1995. Inside were scanned documents. Old, yellowed, grainy, but legible. Document 1, Pharmacy Log, November 8, 1995. Prescription filled digoxin, 0.25 milligauss. Patient name, Patricia Sullivan. Note on file. Patient has no history of heart condition. Claimed prescription was for spouse, though spouse has separate cardiologist. Document 2. Internal memo. St. Jude's Hospital, November 16, 1995. From pathology resident, To Chief of Medicine. Subject: Sullivan autopsy cancellation content. Sir, I am formally objecting to the cancellation of the Richard Sullivan autopsy. Preliminary blood screens showed elevated toxicity levels consistent with digoxin overdose. The widow's refusal to allow a full examination is suspicious given the circumstances. I recommend involving the authorities. Document 3. Disciplinary Action Form. November 18, 1995. Action Termination of Residency. Resident name: Dr. Eris Thorne. Reason: insubordination. Making unfounded allegations against a donor family. I froze. The name leaped off the screen like a physical blow. Dr. Eris Thorne. The same doctor who had signed the psychiatric evaluation 2 days ago. The doctor who declared me unfit. The doctor who diagnosed me with Munchausen syndrome by proxy. He hadn't been bought last week. He hadn't been a random hire. He was the resident who found the poison in Derek's father's blood 30 years ago. And Patricia hadn't just fired him, she had turned him. She had paid him off, reinstated him, and kept him on her payroll for 3 decades to bury the truth. "Oh my God," I whispered. "It's a circle." "The pattern is complete," Noah said, looking at the screen over my shoulder. "Dr. Thorne is the link. He helped cover up the first death. Now he is helping with the second destruction." It wasn't just financial fraud. It wasn't just murder. It was a 30-year conspiracy involving the medical examiner, the banks, and the lawyers. Patricia Sullivan had killed her husband with heart medication she didn't need. She had bought off the young doctor who caught her, and now she was using that same corrupt doctor to frame me and steal my son. I grabbed my phone. I dialed Torres. "Megan, I told you." Torres answered, his voice thick with defeat. "The DA won't move. The case is dead." "The financial case is dead," I said, my voice hard and steady. "But the murder case just opened." "What are you talking about?" "James sent me a dead man's switch. I have the proof, Torres. I have the pharmacy receipts for the poison Patricia used to kill Derek's father in 1995. And I have the disciplinary records for Dr. Eris Thorne, the man trying to take my son, proving he covered it up." Silence on the line, then the sound of movement. A chair scraping. Papers shifting. "Send it to me. Now." "I'm sending it. But Torres, this changes the timeline." "How?" "Patricia thinks she won. She thinks James is dead and the threat is neutralized. She's arrogant." I looked at the digital clock on the motel wall. 8:15 a.m. "She's going to move the money today. She'll try to liquidate the Cayman accounts before anyone starts asking questions about James." "If she moves that money, it vanishes," Torres said. "We need to freeze those assets now." "You can't," I said. "Not without a warrant, and you said the DA is cold. You need probable cause that's fresh." "So what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we give her a reason to panic," I said. "A reason to make a mistake." "Megan, no. You are a protected witness. You stay in that room." "I can't stay in the room, Torres. She killed James. She's coming for my son. The law isn't fast enough." "Megan, I'm going to talk to Derek. That is suicide. If Patricia finds out, Patricia won't find out. Derek is the weak link. He loved his father. He's terrified of his mother. And I have the proof that she murdered the only parent who ever loved him. You think you can turn him? I think he's been waiting 30 years for someone to open the cage door. I think he knows. Deep down, he knows what she did. He just needs to see the paper." "If you do this," Torres said, "you are on your own until we can get a tactical team in place. If she suspects you are meeting him, then she'll try to kill me too. I know." I hung up before he could argue further. I turned to Noah. He was already putting his iPad into his backpack. He had put on his shoes. He was holding Elephant. "Pack your bag, baby." "Are we leaving the safe house?" "Yes." "Is the bad grandmother coming?" "No," I said, closing the laptop with a snap and shoving it into my bag. "We are coming for her." I wasn't the victim anymore. I wasn't the grieving friend. I was the woman holding the match, standing over the gasoline Patricia Sullivan had poured all over her own life. She thought she had buried the truth with James Reeves. She thought she had buried it with Richard Sullivan. She thought she could bury me in a psychiatric ward. She forgot that things buried in the dark have a nasty habit of growing. I grabbed my coat. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. "Let's go, Noah. We have a meeting." It was time to end this. We didn't go back to the apartment. We didn't go to a hotel. We went to the one place where logic ruled over emotion, Diane Chen's law firm. It was 9:45 p.m. The high-rise building in the financial district was a monolith of glass and steel, standing silent against the night sky. The cleaning crews had already passed through. The hallways were dim-lit only by the emergency track lighting that cast long, sterile shadows on the carpet. Diane met us at the service elevator. She looked like she had aged 10 years in the last 12 hours. She was wearing sweatpants and a university hoodie the first time I had ever seen her out of a suit. "Torres called me," she said, ushering us into her corner office and locking the heavy door. "He's furious you left the safe house. He has a tactical team spinning up, but he can't move on Patricia without the DA's sign-off. And the DA is terrified of screwing up a high-profile murder charge based on 30-year-old evidence." "Then we have to make the evidence undeniable," I said. I set up my laptop on Diane's mahogany conference table. Noah immediately claimed the leather sofa in the corner. He arranged his backpack elephant and his iPad in a precise triangle. "I'm going to enter rest mode," he announced. "My battery is at 14%. "Sleep, baby," I whispered. "I'll be right here." He lay down facing the wall. Within minutes, his breathing evened out into a rhythmic inhale, pause, exhale. I turned to Diane. The office was dark, illuminated only by the glow of the city skyline and the harsh blue light of my laptop screen. "We have one night," I said. "James gave us the raw data. We need to build the narrative. We need to understand exactly what happened in November 1995. Diane pulled up a chair. "Open the file." For the next 6 hours, we didn't speak in sentences. We spoke in fragments of horror. The dead man's switch file was a labyrinth. James Reeves hadn't just saved documents. He had annotated them. He had spent his evenings for the last 2 years building a timeline of the murder that started it all. I opened a subfolder labeled Toxicology, Pharmacy Cross-Reference. The screen filled with a scanned image of a pharmacy ledger. It was old, dot matrix printer paper with the perforated edges still attached. "Look at the date," I pointed, tracing the line on the screen. "November 8, 1995. Patricia picks up a prescription for digoxin, 0.25 mg. And here, Diane pointed to a separate document, a medical history form for Richard Sullivan Sr. His cardiologist's notes from October 1995. Patient heart rhythm normal. Blood pressure 120/80. No medication prescribed. She bought heart medication for a husband who didn't have heart problems. "Digoxin," Diane murmured, pulling up a medical reference site on her phone. "It's used for atrial fibrillation, but if you give it to someone with a healthy heart, or if you overdose, it causes arrhythmias, nausea, confusion, and eventually cardiac arrest." I clicked to the next document. It was a handwritten log scrawled in blue ink on St. Jude's Hospital stationery. Observer, James Reeves. Billing clerk. Date, Novi 14, 1995. Note: Mr. Sullivan admitted to ER. Symptoms: vomiting, yellow-tinted vision, irregular pulse. Dr. Thorne resident, attending. Mrs. Sullivan insists it is food poisoning. Yellow-tinted vision, Diane said, her voice chilling. "That's the classic sign of digoxin toxicity. It's called xanthopsia. Van Gogh had it. It's the hallmark of poisoning." She poisoned him slowly, I realized. She didn't just give him one pill, she was dosing him, making him sick, weakening him. I scrolled down. Date Nov 15, 1995. Note patient deceased, 3:42 a.m. Cardiac arrest. Date Nov 16, 1995. Note autopsy ordered by Dr. Thorne. Cancelled by Patricia Sullivan 4 hours later. Billing code changed from suspicious death investigation to natural causes. "And here is the payment," I said, opening a scanned bank transfer. It was a check, dated November 20th, 1995. Paid to the order of Heiress Thorne. Amount $50,000, memo consulting services. $50,000 in 1995, Diane whispered. That was a fortune for a medical resident. That was his student loans paid off. That was his silence bought and paid for. I leaned back, rubbing my eyes. The office felt cold. The ghosts of 1995 were in the room with us. It wasn't a crime of passion, I said. It was a corporate takeover. Richard Sr. wanted to go clean. Patricia killed him to keep the money dirty, and she bought a doctor to cover it up. And now she's using that same doctor to take Noah. Diane looked at me. Megan, this is enough for the FBI. Why do you need Derek? Because this proves Patricia is a killer, I said, but it doesn't prove Derek is innocent. He's not innocent. He embezzled millions. I know, but look at this. I opened the final file in the folder. It was a scanned page from a journal. James's handwriting, but the content was a transcription of a conversation he had overheard years ago between Patricia and Derek. Transcription date July 2012. Context argument in executive office. Derek: I can't do it, Mother. I can't fire James. He knows. Patricia: You will fire him, or do you want to end up like your father? Do you remember the yellow vision, Derek? Do you remember how he begged for water? I stared at the screen. She taunts him with it, I said softly. She uses his father's murder to keep him in line. She terrifies him. I looked at Diane. If I go to the FBI with just the papers, Patricia gets arrested, but Derek goes down for the fraud. He goes to prison for 20 years. Noah loses his father completely. He deserves prison, Megan. Maybe. But if I can get him to testify against her voluntarily, he gets a deal. He gets 5 years instead of 20, and more importantly, I looked at Noah sleeping on the couch. He breaks the cycle. He stops being her puppet. You want to save him, Diane said, disbelief coloring her tone. After everything he did to you. I don't want to save him for me, I said. I want to save him so my son doesn't have to grow up knowing his father was a coward who let his grandmother get away with murder. I stood up and walked to the window. The city lights were blurring as the fog rolled in off the harbor. It was 3:00 a.m., the darkest part of the night. I need to talk to Walter Brennan, I said. Who? James's note mentioned him. Ask about 1995. But there was a phone number in the footer of the email. Area code 917. I pulled out my phone. It's 3:00 a.m., Megan. If he's been waiting 30 years for this, he's awake. I dialed the number. It rang once, twice. This is Brennan. The voice was gravelly alert. He was awake. Mr. Brennan, my name is Megan Carter. I received a package from James Reeves. Silence on the line. Then a heavy exhale. I heard about James. I'm sorry. He was a good man. A paranoid man, but a good one. He sent me the files, the pharmacy receipts, the payoff to Thorne. You have the smoking gun, Brennan said. So why are you calling me? Why aren't you at the FBI? Because I need to understand the boy, I said. Derek. He was 15 when his father died. Where was he? Brennan paused. The silence stretched so long I thought he had hung up. He was in the room, Brennan said finally. His voice broke slightly. Richard called me the night he died. He was delirious. He said Patricia gave him medicine for his stomach. He said Derek was sitting by the bed holding his hand. My heart clenched. He watched him die. He watched him suffer, Brennan corrected. Digoxin toxicity isn't quick. It's agonizing. Richard was hallucinating, vomiting. And Patricia, she wouldn't call 911. She told Derek that his father was having a breakdown, that if they called the police, Richard would go to jail for fraud. She told the boy that letting his father die was the only way to save the family reputation. I closed my eyes. She made him complicit, I whispered. She made a 15-year-old boy believe that letting his father die was an act of loyalty. She broke him that night, Brennan said. She shattered that boy's moral compass and rebuilt it in her own image. Derek isn't just her son, Mrs. Carter. He's her hostage. He has been for 30 years. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. That's what I needed to know. What are you going to do? I'm going to set him free. I hung up. I looked at the file on the screen. The pharmacy receipt, November 8, 1995. I pulled up a new email window. I attached the image of the receipt and the transcription of the argument about the yellow vision. I typed Derek's email address. Subject: the yellow vision body. I know what happened in 1995. I know you were in the room. I know she told you it was to save the family. I have the receipts, Derek. I have the proof that she poisoned him. The FBI moves at noon. This is your only chance. Coffee shop, 9 a.m. Alone. If you don't come, I give this to Torres and you go to prison as an accessory to murder. Come, and you can finally stop being afraid. I hovered my finger over the send button. This was it, the point of no return. If I sent this, I was tipping my hand. If Derek showed this to Patricia, she would know exactly what I had. She would know she needed to kill me immediately. But if I didn't send it... The cycle continued. I looked at Noah. He was sleeping with his mouth slightly open, one hand clutching the worn trunk of his stuffed elephant. He looked so peaceful, so innocent. He deserved a father who wasn't a monster, or at least a father who finally chose to do the right thing. I pressed send. The whoosh sound of the email leaving my outbox seemed to echo in the silent office. "It's done," I said to Diane. She looked at me with a mixture of fear and admiration. "You realize what you just did. You just walked into the lion's den and poked the sleeping beast." "No," I said, watching the dawn begin to gray the sky outside the window. "I just opened the cage." I sat down to wait. 5 hours until the meeting. 5 hours to memorize every fact, every figure, every threat. I closed my eyes for the first time in 24 hours. I didn't see darkness. I saw a small house with a red door, and I saw the word after. I was ready. The family court building was a fortress of gray stone designed to make you feel small before you even stepped inside. It was 8:45 a.m. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 900. I sat on a wooden bench in the hallway outside courtroom 4B. Noah sat beside me, his legs swinging rhythmically, his eyes focused on his iPad where he was building a digital city. He was the only calm thing in a world that felt like it was spinning off its axis. Diane Chen stood by the window on the phone. She wasn't shouting. She was whispering with the terrifying intensity of a woman arranging a demolition. "Yes, Agent Torres. I have the affidavit. Yes. I'm walking in now. Just be ready." She hung up and turned to me. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. "Okay," she said. "Here is the landscape. This is an ex parte emergency hearing, which usually means the respondent doesn't get much time to prepare. But because we filed an objection at 600 a.m. with the supporting evidence from James's files, the judge has to review our submission before ruling." "Judge Morrison?" I said. "Patricia's golf partner." "He recused himself?" Diane said, a small grim smile touching her lips. "Too much heat. He called in sick this morning. We drew Judge Sterling. She's tough, she hates drama, and she has zero patience for wasted time." "Is that good for us?" "It's good if we stick to the facts. It's bad if you get emotional. Patricia's strategy is to paint you as hysterical and paranoid. If you cry, if you scream, if you interrupt, you prove her point." I looked at the courtroom doors. Patricia was already inside. Derek was inside. "I won't cry," I said. "I'm done crying." "Good, because we're not going in there to defend you, Megan. We're going in there to impeach their witness." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. No jury box, just 2 tables, a bench, and the witness stand. Patricia sat at the plaintiff's table. She was wearing a soft beige cardigan over a modest dress, the costume of a concerned, grieving grandmother. She looked frail, harmless. Derek sat next to her. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. He was staring at his phone, his thumb hovering over the screen. I knew what he was looking at, the email I had sent him 5 hours ago, the yellow vision, the proof that I knew he had watched his father die. He looked up as I walked in. His eyes met mine. There was no anger there anymore, just terror and a question. "Is it true? Do you really have it?" I gave him the smallest nod. "Yes." He looked away, swallowing hard. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Sterling swept in. She was a woman in her 60s with severe glasses and a no-nonsense demeanor. She sat down, opened the file, and frowned. "We are here on an emergency motion regarding the custody of Noah Sullivan," she said. I've reviewed the petitioner's filing. Allegations of Munchausen syndrome by proxy paranoia and child endangerment. These are serious charges, Mr. Vance. Patricia's lawyer stood up, smooth, oily. They are, Your Honor, and we have the clinical evaluation to back them up. Call your witness. Dr. Eris Thorne took the stand. He was an older man distinguished with silver hair and a soothing voice. He looked exactly like what you'd expect a high-priced psychiatrist to look like. Trustworthy. Authoritative. Dr. Thorne, Vance began, can you tell the court your professional opinion of Ms. Carter? In my professional opinion, Thorne said, looking at me with sad, pitying eyes, Ms. Carter is suffering from a severe persecutory delusion. She believes she is being followed. She believes her husband's family is part of a criminal conspiracy. To cope with this anxiety, she has projected illness onto her son, isolating him to keep him safe from these imagined threats. And do you believe Noah is in danger? I do. A parent in the grip of a paranoid break can be unpredictable. She might flee. She might harm the child to save him. Patricia dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Perfect performance. Thank you, Doctor. Judge Sterling turned to Diane. Cross-examination. Diane stood up. She didn't walk to the podium. She picked up a single piece of paper from her stack. Dr. Thorne, Diane said pleasantly, you stated in your affidavit that you are an independent evaluator appointed by the court's list of approved experts, correct? That is correct. And you have no prior relationship with the Sullivan family. Thorne didn't blink. None whatsoever. I see. Diane walked toward him. Dr. Thorne, are you familiar with an account at First Republic Bank ending in 4492? Thorne's eye twitched. A micro-expression. I have several accounts. This account received a wire transfer of $10,000 2 weeks ago, Diane said, from a shell company called Blue Water Solutions. Do you recognize that name? I do not. That's strange, because we have the incorporation documents showing Blue Water Solutions is wholly owned by Derek Sullivan. Diane dropped the paper on the defense table. And we have a sworn affidavit from the bank tracing the funds directly to your personal checking account. The memo line read, consulting fees. Patricia sat up straighter. Her hand gripped Derek's arm. Objection, Vance shouted. Relevance. It goes to credibility, Your Honor, Diane said sharply. The independent expert accepted a $10,000 payment from the petitioner's son 2 days before writing this evaluation. Judge Sterling looked at Thorne. Doctor, care to explain? It must be a mistake, Thorne stammered. I do some consulting work. Perhaps a clerical error? Let's talk about clerical errors. Diane interrupted. She pulled out the second document, the one from 1995, the one James had died to save. Dr. Thorne, were you a resident at St. Jude's Hospital in November 1995? The color drained from Thorne's face so fast it was like someone pulled a plug. That was a long time ago. Do you remember a patient named Richard Sullivan Sr.? Thorne looked at Patricia. It was a reflex, a look of panic seeking instruction. Patricia's face was stone, but her eyes were screaming at him to shut up. I treated many patients, Thorne whispered. Did you treat the one who died of digoxin toxicity? Diane asked. Her voice was quiet, lethal. The one whose autopsy you ordered and then canceled 4 hours later. The one whose death certificate you signed as natural causes, 1 day before you received a $50,000 grant from the Sullivan Family Trust. The courtroom went dead silent. Objection. Vance was screaming now. This is ancient history. It has nothing to do with this custody case. It establishes a 30-year pattern of corruption between this witness and the petitioner, Diane roared back, slamming the file onto the table. It proves that this doctor is not an expert witness. He is a paid employee of the Sullivan crime family, and his evaluation of my client is worth less than the paper it's printed on. Judge Sterling was staring at Thorne. She looked at the documents Diane had submitted. She looked at the wire transfer records. Dr. Thorne, the judge said, her voice dangerously low. I am going to ask you once. Did you receive payment from the Sullivan family to falsify this custody evaluation? Thorne looked at the judge. He looked at Diane. He looked at the FBI agents who had just quietly slipped into the back of the courtroom, Agent Torres and his partner standing silently by the doors. Thorne saw the walls closing in. He saw his medical license burning. He saw prison. His voice broke. I was told she was unstable. They told me she was dangerous. I signed what they gave me. You signed what they gave you, the judge repeated. I didn't evaluate her, Thorne admitted, slumping in the chair. I never met her. They sent over the report. I just signed it. Chaos. Vance buried his face in his hands. Patricia stared straight ahead, her face a mask of frozen rage. Derek looked down at his lap, shaking his head. Enough, Judge Sterling said. She banged her gavel. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. The petitioner's motion for emergency custody is denied, with prejudice. She turned her glare on Patricia. Mrs. Sullivan, you are dangerously close to being held in contempt. If you ever attempt to manipulate this court with fraudulent evidence again, I will have you arrested in this chamber. Do I make myself clear? Patricia didn't answer. She stood up, her movements stiff and jerky like a marionette with tangled strings. We're done here, she hissed at Derek. Come. She walked out. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at Noah. She walked past the FBI agents at the door with her head high, pretending she was still the queen of the city. But she wasn't. She was a woman running out of time. Derek lingered. The courtroom cleared out. Diane stayed behind to file the dismissal paperwork with the clerk. I stood by the table gathering my files. Derek walked over to me. He stood 3 feet away, close enough to smell the stale coffee and fear on him. You sent the email, he said. Yes. The yellow vision. He said the words like they were a curse. How did you know? James found the billing records. He found the notes about your father's symptoms, the vomiting, the hallucinations, the yellow tint to his vision. I looked him in the eye. Digoxin poisoning Derek. She poisoned him. Derek flinched, his eyes filled with tears, red-rimmed and raw. She told me. He stopped, looked around to make sure we were alone. She told me he was trying to leave us, that he was going to take all the money and run away with the secretary. She said she gave him something to make him stay, and it went wrong. She lied to you, I said gently. He wasn't running away with the secretary. He was going to the SEC. He was going to turn himself in for the fraud she started. She killed him to keep him quiet, and she made you an accessory to silence you too. He covered his mouth with his hand. A sob escaped a harsh, jagged sound. 30 years, he whispered. I've been protecting her for 30 years because I thought it was an accident I helped cover up. It was never an accident, it was murder, and Dr. Thorne just proved she's willing to do it again. I stepped closer. The FBI was in the back of the room, Derek. Torres is waiting outside. They are building the murder case now. Thorne will talk. He'll give up everything to save his own skin. I know. You have one chance, I said. 1 hour, meet me, the coffee shop, 9 a.m. If I meet you, she'll know. She's done, Derek. Look at her. I gestured to the empty door where Patricia had exited. She just lost her doctor. She lost her leverage. She's cornered, and cornered animals bite. She'll kill me, he said, like she killed James. Not if you get to the FBI first. I picked up my bag. 9 a.m., Derek. Be the father Noah deserves. Just for once. I walked out of the courtroom. In the hallway, Noah was waiting with Diane. He looked up as I approached, scanning my face for data. The bad doctor lied, Noah said. I heard through the door. Yes, he did. And the judge caught him. She did. Good, Noah nodded. Lies create unstable structures. Eventually, they fall down. Yes, baby. They're falling down now. I looked at Diane. She gave me a thumbs up. We had won the battle. Noah was safe. But the war wasn't over. Patricia was still free. And I knew with absolute certainty that she wouldn't wait for the police to come for her. She would try to liquidate the money. She would try to run. Or she would try to kill the last person who could testify against her. I checked my watch. 9:15 a.m. I had 45 minutes to get to the coffee shop. 45 minutes to see if my husband was finally ready to be a man. Take Noah to the field office, I told Diane. Keep him with Torres. I have one more meeting. Megan, don't, Diane warned. It's too dangerous. Let the FBI pick Derek up. They can't pick him up without a warrant, and the warrant won't be ready until Thorne signs his confession. That takes hours. I tightened my grip on my bag. I need Derek to volunteer. I need him to wear a wire. It's the only way to get Patricia today. And if he doesn't come, he'll come, I said. He knows the truth about his father now. The spell is broken. I kissed Noah on the forehead. Go with Diane. I'll see you soon. Be careful, Mom, Noah said. The variables are moving fast. I know. I love you. I turned and walked toward the elevators, toward the coffee shop, toward the end. I didn't sleep after the court hearing. We went back to the safe house, Diane's instruction, not mine. The FBI wanted us secure until the warrant for Patricia was signed. The hotel room was quiet, lit only by the street lamps filtering through the cheap curtains. Noah slept deeply exhausted by the tension of the day, his breathing a soft, rhythmic metronome in the silence. I sat at the small desk, staring at the evidence. The flash drive James had sent me glowed faintly in the dark. Beside it lay the folder Walter Brennan had given me. And on my laptop screen, the scanned image of the 1995 pharmacy receipt. Digoxin, 0.25 milliliters. Patient Patricia Sullivan. I memorized it. I memorized the dates, the dosages, the doctor's signature. I needed to know this story better than I knew my own name. Because tomorrow morning I wasn't just going to meet my ex-husband. I was going to perform an exorcism. I was going to pull the demon out of him layer by layer until only the man was left. The numbers on the digital clock flipped. 4:00 a.m. 5:00 a.m. 6:00 a.m. At 7:00 a.m. Noah woke up. He sat up in bed, blinking his hair messy on one side. He looked at me, sitting fully dressed in the chair where he had left me the night before. You didn't recharge, he noted. I'm running on backup power, I said, offering him a tired smile. Is today the final variable? Yes, today is the final variable. He climbed out of bed and walked over to me. He touched the folder on the desk. The bad daddy is going to be sad, he said. Why do you say that? Because when you find out your foundation is rotten, the house falls down. Noah looked at me with those ancient knowing eyes. Daddy's foundation is the grandmother. Today you are going to break the foundation. I have to, Noah. I know. It is necessary for structural integrity. He paused. But he will still be sad. Broken things usually are. I hugged him. My son who understood physics better than people, but somehow understood the human heart better than anyone. Nod. I texted Derek at 8:15 a.m. I didn't ask. I didn't beg. I sent coordinates. The coffee shop on 4th, 9:00 a.m. Come alone or I send the 1995 file to Torres. He didn't reply. But the little bubbles appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. He was typing, deleting, typing, deleting. Panic in digital form. Finally, a single word. Coming. I left Noah with Diane and Agent Kim in the hotel lobby. Diane looked worried. This is dangerous, Megan. If Patricia follows him... She won't. She's scrambling. She just lost her doctor and her legal standing. She's busy trying to hide money. She won't be watching Derek. Torres has a team near the coffee shop, Diane said. If Derek makes a move, he won't make a move on me. He's too scared. I walked out into the morning air. It was crisp cold. The city was waking up, people rushing to work, oblivious to the fact that a 30-year-old murder mystery was about to be solved over a latte. The coffee shop was the same one where I had first asked him about Vanessa. Full circle. I took the corner booth. Back to the wall. View of the door. Derek arrived at 9:08 a.m. He looked wrecked. The polished CEO facade was gone. His shirt was wrinkled, the top button undone, tie slightly askew. He hadn't shaved, and the gray stubble on his jaw made him look 10 years older. But it was his eyes that shocked me. They were bloodshot, darting around the room, filled with a frantic, hunted energy. He saw me. He hesitated. Then he walked over and slid into the booth opposite me. He didn't order coffee. He just put his hands on the table. They were shaking. "You won," he said. His voice was a rasp. "The judge, Thorne. It's all over. She's furious, Megan. She's tearing the house apart looking for bugs." "She should be. What do you want? You have Noah. You have the company. What else is there?" "Justice," I said. I placed the folder on the table between us. I didn't open it yet. "Derek, look at me." He raised his eyes. "I know what happened the night your father died." He flinched, a physical recoil pressing his back against the booth. "She told me," he whispered. "She told me he was having a breakdown, that he took something to calm down and had a reaction. She said if we called 911, they would find the irregularities in the accounts. She said he would go to prison and leave us with nothing. She lied. She didn't lie. I was there. I saw him sick. I saw him—" He choked on the memory. "You saw him vomiting. You saw him clutching his chest. Did he tell you the lights looked yellow, Derek? Did he say everything looked yellow?" Derek froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "It's called xanthopsia," I said, opening the folder. "Yellow vision. It is the specific symptom of digoxin poisoning." I slid the 1995 pharmacy receipt across the table. "Look at the date, November 8th, 1 week before he died. Your mother bought digoxin. Your father didn't have a heart condition. She did." Derek stared at the receipt. "She poisoned him, Derek, slowly, over a week. She made him sick so he would be weak. And then she gave him the final dose the night he died." "No," he whispered. "No, she did it to save the family. He was going to leave us. He was going to run away with—" "He wasn't running away," I interrupted, sliding the next document across. The internal memo from James Reeves. "He was going to the SEC. He had found out she was laundering money through his accounts. He was going to turn himself in to save you, to keep you out of it." Derek read the memo. He read the words whistleblower and self-reporting. "She killed him because he developed a conscience," I said ruthlessly. "And then she turned you into an accessory to murder at 15 years old. She made you watch your father die to bind you to her forever. It wasn't love, Derek. It was a hostage situation." Tears spilled down Derek's face. He didn't wipe them away. He just stared at the papers, his entire reality crumbling. "And Dr. Thorne," he asked, his voice trembling. "She paid him $50,000 to sign the death certificate as natural causes. And then she kept him on the payroll for 30 years. That's why he wrote the report on me. It's the same playbook, Derek. Eliminate the threat. Bury the truth." I leaned forward. "She killed James Reeves 2 days ago." Derek looked up sharply. "James, suicide. James sent me this file before he died. She had him killed, just like she killed your father. And now—" I paused. "Now she's looking at me. And Noah." "She won't hurt Noah," Derek said reflexively. "She called him a variable. She tried to have him taken by the state. Do you really think she cares about him, or is he just another asset to control?" Derek put his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. "I can't," he sobbed. "I can't fight her. She owns everything. She owns me." "Not anymore." I pulled out the final piece of paper. Not evidence. An offer. "Agent Torres is waiting for my call. The FBI is ready to move. But they need one thing to make the murder charge stick immediately. They need a witness who can place her in the room. A witness who can testify to her state of mind." "Me," Derek whispered. "You have 2 choices, Derek, right now. Option A. You do nothing. The FBI raids the house at noon based on the financial crimes. You go down for embezzlement, fraud, and money laundering. You get 20 years. You die in prison just like she will." He shuddered. "Option B," I continued. "You pick up that phone. You call Agent Torres. You tell him you want to cooperate. You wear a wire, you go back to that house, and you get her to admit what she did. You give them the layout of the accounts. And what do I get? You get 5 years, maybe 3 with good behavior. You get to see Noah graduate high school, and most importantly, you get to stop being her victim. I sat back. Be the father Noah deserves, Derek. Just for 5 minutes. Be the man your father wanted you to be. The silence in the coffee shop was deafening. The espresso machine hissed. A door opened. Derek looked at the receipt again. Digoxin. Patricia Sullivan. The lie he had built his life on was gone. The fear that had ruled him was still there, but it was being replaced by something hotter, something like rage. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out his phone. His hand was shaking so hard he almost dropped it. He looked at me. What's the number? The call lasted 4 minutes. I watched Derek Sullivan destroy his own life to save his soul. Yes, he said into the phone. My name is Derek Sullivan. I want to report a murder. My father and James Reeves. He listened. He nodded. I understand. I'll wear it. I'll get the confession. He paused. He looked at me. I'm doing this for my son, he said into the phone. Put that in the file. He hung up. He put the phone down on the table and exhaled a breath that seemed to carry 30 years of poison with it. They're meeting me, he said. 2 blocks over. They have the wire ready. Good. She's going to know Megan, the moment I walk in the door. She smells fear. You're not afraid anymore, I said. You're angry. Use that. He nodded. He stood up. He buttoned his jacket, trying to summon some shred of the dignity he used to wear like armor. Thank you, he said. For what? For forcing me to look. He walked toward the door. He stopped, turned back. If something happens to me in there, the FBI will be listening. They'll breach the second she threatens you. Right. He smiled grimly. Just tell Noah I tried. At the end, tell him I tried to fix the pattern. I will. He walked out. I watched him go. I watched him turn the corner toward the FBI van waiting down the street. I should have felt triumphant. I had turned the enemy. I had secured the win. But as I sat there, a cold feeling settled in my stomach. My phone buzzed. I picked it up. A text from Derek, sent just before he turned the corner. She knows. My heart stopped. What do you mean? I typed back frantically. I just got a notification from the home security system, he wrote. The internal cameras in the study were disabled remotely 10 minutes ago. She knows I'm coming, and she knows I'm not coming alone. Don't go in there, I typed. Abort. The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then a new text. It's too late. If I don't go, she runs. She has a plane on standby at Teterboro. I have to keep her there. Derek, no. Protect Noah was his last message. She's not just angry. She's done. I stared at the phone. He was walking into a trap. He knew it, and he was doing it anyway. But if Patricia knew he was turning... She wasn't just waiting for him. She was clearing the board. My phone buzzed again. Not a text. An alert from my bank app. Alert: unauthorized attempt to access child savings account ending in 8821. She was liquidating. She was scorching the earth. And if she was scorching the earth, she wouldn't leave me and Noah standing. I grabbed my bag and ran. I didn't run to the FBI. I ran to the car. I had to get to Noah. Because Patricia Sullivan wasn't waiting at the house for Derek to arrest her. She was already moving. I drove like a maniac. I ran 2 red lights on 4th Avenue. My phone was in the cup holder connected to the car's Bluetooth, the line open to Agent Torres. She's not at the house, Derek's voice screamed through the speakers, distorted by wind and panic. I'm here. The alarm is disarmed. The safe is open and empty. She's gone, Megan. Where is she? I yelled, swerving around a delivery truck. Her GPS tracker, the one she put on my car. She switched it, Derek shouted. She put it on her Mercedes, but the Mercedes is still in the garage. She took the housekeeper's sedan. She's gone dark. Torres, I shouted at the dashboard. Do you have eyes on the safe house? We have 2 agents in the lobby. Torres's voice cut in calm but urgent. They report no activity. Diane and the boy are in room 3114. They're secure. She's not going to the lobby, I said, a cold realization washing over me. She knows the protocols, she knows about the agents. She'll go for the service entrance, or the fire escape. We're redirecting units to your location and the hotel, Torres said. ETA 6 minutes. 6 minutes is too long. I screeched into the hotel parking lot. My tires smoked as I slammed on the brakes. I didn't wait for backup. I sprinted toward the side door, the one propped open by a cleaning cart. A security breach. Patricia was already here. The hallway on the third floor was silent. The patterned carpet swallowed the sound of my footsteps. Room 314. The door was closed. The Do Not Disturb sign hung from the handle. It looked normal. It looked safe. But as I reached for the handle, I saw it. A tiny splinter of wood on the doorframe. The jamb had been forced. Subtle, professional, but broken. I didn't burst in. I stopped. I took a breath. I pulled my phone from my pocket and checked the connection. The call with Torres was still active. "I'm going in," I whispered. "Megan, wait for the team," Torres hissed. "No time." I pushed the door open. The scene inside was a tableau of frozen violence. Diane was sitting in the desk chair. Her hands were zip-tied behind her back. A strip of duct tape covered her mouth. Her eyes were wide, terrified, darting between me and the corner of the room. Noah was on the bed. He wasn't tied up. He was sitting cross-legged, holding elephant, staring with unnatural stillness at the woman standing by the window. Patricia Sullivan. She didn't look like the queen of society anymore. Her hair was windblown. Her Chanel suit was wrinkled. She held a small silver pistol, a Ladysmith .38, with a steady hand. She wasn't pointing it at Diane. She was pointing it at Noah. "Close the door, Megan," she said. Her voice was conversational, light, terrifying. "And lock it." I closed the door. The latch clicked. "Put the phone on the floor, face down, slide it over." She knew. Of course she knew. I knelt slowly. "Patricia, it's over. The FBI is downstairs." "The FBI is slow," she said. "I have a plane waiting in Teterboro, and I have an insurance policy." She gestured with the gun toward Noah. "We're going for a ride, the boy and I. You're going to walk us out the back exit." "You're not taking him." "I am. He's my grandson, he's family. Families stick together." She smiled, but her eyes were dead. "Unlike your husband, my traitorous son." "Derek didn't betray you," I said, keeping my voice level, keeping her eyes on me. "He finally woke up. He knows about 1995, Patricia. He knows you poisoned his father." Patricia's face twisted, a spasm of genuine hurt. "I saved this family. Richard was weak. He was going to ruin us. I did what had to be done to preserve the legacy. Everything I did. The poison, the payoffs, removing James. It was all for Derek, to build him a kingdom." "A kingdom built on corpses," I said. "And now you want to take Noah into it." "Noah is like me," Patricia said, glancing at my son. "He sees things. He's smart. Derek was always soft, but the boy has potential. I can mold him." Noah spoke then. His voice was small but perfectly clear. "You have a logical fallacy, grandmother." Patricia blinked. "What? You think you are the constant?" Noah said, clutching elephant. "But you are the variable that needs to be removed. Your pattern is destructive. It ends in 0. "Be quiet, Noah." She snapped, the gun twitching. "No." I stepped forward, putting myself between her and the bed. "He's right. It ends in 0. The accounts are frozen, Patricia. I sent the files to the SEC an hour ago. The money in the Caymans, it's gone. Seized." "You're lying. Check your phone." It was a gamble. A massive, terrifying gamble. Patricia hesitated. Her greed warred with her survival instinct. For a fraction of a second, her eyes flicked to her purse on the dresser. In that second, the window behind her exploded. It wasn't a bullet. It was a flashbang grenade launched from the adjacent roof. Boom! The room filled with blinding white light and a sound so loud it felt like a punch to the chest. Patricia screamed, throwing her hands up to cover her eyes. The gun clattered to the floor. "FBI, get down! Get down!" The door burst open. Agents in tactical gear flooded the room. Red laser sights cut through the smoke. I didn't drop. I lunged. I tackled Patricia just as she reached for the gun on the carpet. We hit the floor hard. She clawed at my face, screaming like a banshee, no longer the sophisticated matriarch, but a feral animal cornered in a trap. "It's mine!" she shrieked. "It's all mine! It's over!" I pinned her wrists to the ground. "You lose." Strong hands pulled me off her. Agent Torres was there. He hauled Patricia to her feet, spinning her around. The click of handcuffs was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. "Patricia Sullivan." Torres recited, "You are under arrest for the murder of James Reeves, the murder of Richard Sullivan Sr., conspiracy kidnapping, and federal wire fraud." She was still screaming as they dragged her out, screaming about her money, screaming about her legacy, screaming Derek's name. I scrambled over to the bed. Noah! He was sitting exactly where he had been. He hadn't moved. He hadn't cried. He was brushing a piece of glass off Elephant's ear. "That was very loud," he said. I pulled him into my arms, burying my face in his neck, sobbing uncontrollably. "I've got you. I've got you. You're safe." Diane was being cut loose by an agent. She rubbed her wrists, looking at me with wide, shocked eyes. "You timed that," she rasped. "You timed the window." "I hoped," I whispered. "I just hoped." The aftermath. 3 hours later, I sat in an interrogation room at the FBI office, not as a suspect, as a witness. Agent Torres placed a cup of coffee in front of me. "She confessed," he said. "In the car, she couldn't stop talking. She wanted us to know how brilliant she was. She gave up everything. The doctor, the accounts, the timeline. And Derek," Torres sat down. "He wore the wire. He went into the house even though he knew she was gone. He found her go bag with the fake passports. He brought it to us. What happens to him?" "He's cooperating, given his testimony and the fact that he was coerced as a minor into the original cover-up. The DA is looking at a plea deal, 3 to 5 years in a minimum security facility. He'll lose his license to practice business. He'll lose the assets, but he won't die in prison." "Does he want to see me?" "He asked to see Noah." I shook my head. "No, not yet. Noah needs time." Torres nodded. "You're free to go, Mrs. Carter. It's done." I walked out of the office. Diane was waiting in the lobby with Noah. Noah was drawing in a notebook. He looked up. "Is the equation balanced now?" he asked. "Yes, baby. It's balanced to 0. "Good." He closed the book. "Can we go to the house with the red door now?" 6 months later, the cottage sat at the end of a quiet lane in Vermont. It wasn't big. It wasn't impressive. It had creaky floorboards and a garden that needed weeding. It was perfect. I sat on the back porch watching the autumn leaves drift down. The air smelled of wood smoke and apples. My phone buzzed on the table. An email from Diane. Subject, final settlement. "Megan, the sale of the Sullivan estate closed today. The proceeds after restitution to the shareholders and the IRS have been deposited into the trust for Noah. It's clean money. Patricia's assets have been seized. Derek reports to federal prison on Monday. Also, I found this in the files. Thought you should have it." Attached was a scanned image, a copy of the original incorporation papers for Carter Tech. My signature, 2010. I closed the phone. I didn't need the papers. I didn't need the company. I had sold my controlling interest 3 months ago. I took the payout, my clean, hard-earned money, and I walked away. I walked inside. Noah was at the kitchen table. He wasn't lining up cars today. He was helping me make dinner. 3 carrots, he said, chopping them with careful precision. 3 stalks of celery. 3 potatoes. Perfect ratio, I said. He looked at me. He looked taller. His shoulders were looser. The tension that used to live in his jaw was gone. "I got a letter," he said. "From Dad." I froze. "You did?" "It came in the mail. I read it." "What did it say?" Noah picked up a slice of carrot. He examined it in the light. "He said he was sorry. He said he was learning how to be brave. He said the prison library has good books on astronomy." "How do you feel about that?" "I think..." Noah paused. "I think he is rebooting. Like a computer that had a virus. It takes a long time to clear the system." "Yes, it does." I might write him back, Noah said. Eventually, when his system is clean. He dropped the carrot into the pot. Plop. I looked at the refrigerator. Held there by a magnet was Noah's drawing, the one he made in the hotel room. The house with the red door. The two of us. And the word now written in bright blue crayon. Not after. Now. Because we weren't waiting for anything anymore. We weren't hiding. We weren't surviving. We were living. I walked over to my son. I kissed the top of his head. Dinner in 20 minutes, I said. Okay. He smiled, a real smile. I'll set the table. 3 plates. I hesitated. Then I smiled back. 2 plates, baby. Just 2. He nodded. 2 is a prime number. It stands alone. It is strong. Yes, I said, looking out the window at the peaceful, quiet street where no black SUVs waited, where no secrets buried in the past could hurt us. It is very strong. I turned back to the stove. The water boiled. The steam rose. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't watching the shadows. I was just cooking dinner.